Our guest today is Patrick Kirk. After captaining Bohemian FC's under-19 squad and breaking into their first team, Patrick has returned to the club this season after spells at Longford Town FC and Sligo Rovers FC.
And it's broken back to Paddy Kirk. Is he going to make a bit of room for himself? He does, and he scored. That's a great finish from Paddy Kirk.
A multi-talented and diverse individual, Patrick has an innate interest in menswear, content creation, and the arts. He founded the company Dubstreetware, which has accumulated a large social media presence. We dive into an open conversation today, touching on a wide and diverse range of topics from imposter syndrome, balancing work-life balance, and also music. We hope you enjoy. All right, we're good. Here we are with Patrick Kirk. We say Patrick. Woo!
Thanks, lads.
It's like a talk show.
It.
Yeah, we said Patrick because everything that says, or everything from my history has been Paddy, but apparently it's actually Patrick is the preferred name.
It is Patrick, but in particularly football circles,
Mm-hmm.
it's Paddy. Strictly Paddy.
Okay, interesting. And would you believe Patrick was our first ever, I would say, professional player in that sense, about 2018. So it's amazing to have him back in on the first podcast. Well, I'd say your first podcast, there will be many appearances, I'd say. And that's why we're here today. So we typically start these with quick fire questions. They're a little bit different for most guests, but some of them are the same, starting with Gary's favorite. So Gary, do you want to kick us off with that first question of yours?
This is absolute most important thing in this podcast. Rank these in order: chocolate, sweets, crisps.
Sweets, chocolate crisps.
Ooh, that was quick too.
Love sweets.
Quick answer.
Swiftly moving on. No comment from me.
Right.
That was the quickest answer I think we've
What'd
had.
you say?
with
Top
that
sweets.
question.
Sweets.
What's your go-to sweet?
Squashies.
Oh, it's a good choice. It's a good top choice.
Okay.
Or sour splash.
Sour splash.
Yeah, you know, like the sour squirms.
Yeah.
There's like fish version of them. There you go.
Can you buy them here?
No, like they're not fish flavour. Like they're shaped in the shape. They're in the shape of fish. Like.
I mean, are they like sweets you can buy in Ireland?
Yeah,
You can, yeah. I've never seen them or heard of them.
I'll send you a link.
Yeah. There
Please
you go.
do. Yeah. Well, definitely for the sweet connoisseurs. I've been, I think we've all been hitting hard on Mawams.
Yeah.
Oh, going hard on them
ridiculous.
now. Now,
Yeah.
Finn Canto with his braces, but I mean, they're elite.
Go through phases of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The big
Like that.
share packs. Unbelievable.
Right. Who is the best player you've played against? And that can be someone who like had a great career and you just played against them in a game and they mightn't have been great, or someone who on the day you were like, Jesus, he's unplayable.
Trying to think. There's a couple lads I played against in Europe that would have been like unbelievable, but like, you know, I wouldn't be able to name them now.
Yeah.
So it's probably easier to talk domestically who I've played against. I'd say Danny Mandrew, he's definitely up there in terms of natural ability. Obviously I got to play with him as well, but the stuff that he can do, like he can change a game with like a split second, and so I'd say he's definitely, even in terms of naturally gifted footballers, he'd be up there.
Nice.
Did you not play against Chelsea as well?
Played against Chelsea, yeah, but Billy Gilmore was a good player.
Yeah.
Who were you up against that day? Who was your direct? Who was the winger?
Who was the winger?
Ah, yeah, played Chelsea.
I actually forgot we played Chelsea. Sounds mad now, but
Yeah.
who was the winger? Brazilian fella. Was at Fulham on loan for a while.
William.
No,
I was thinking. Emerson
No.
Defoe? No.
I don't think he ever actually played for Chelsea.
Kennedy? No.
He never made a first team appearance.
Oh.
Ah,
He's one of them players that went on loan like
Yeah.
every year.
One of the academy players.
Zavacosta played right full.
Jeez, remember him, yeah.
Good player.
Wait,
Yeah, he probably nicks it.
how did you forget you played against Chelsea?
Oh, yeah, Chelsea, yeah.
Yes.
Who is or was your favourite player to play with as a teammate?
Detzer probably. Love playing with Detzer. Love training with him. I think he brings you on a lot. Like, I've probably played with better players and like who probably helped my game in terms of on the pitch. Like that's obviously your rifle, but in terms of what Detzer like how he would have helped me when I came through, and even the way he played as an example for me coming through, I'd say he's definitely up there. Yeah.
With that, was there ever like, do you look at that and it's kind of like little things he does? Because Conor Masterson talked about like Milner as being an example of someone who like, it was always just small little things he'd always do, and he'd always say things at the right time. Was it like that, or was it more like there was a couple of key incidents, so to speak, where you were like, oh, okay, that's the way I should be, or how would you?
No, I wouldn't say there was particular moments, but like Detzer wouldn't be the loudest in terms of a dressing room. Like as a captain, he wouldn't be screaming and shouting. But it's more kind of how he trained. Like he trained like possessed, like unbelievably well. Everything he did was like as if it's his last ever session, and like that's something that always stuck with me. Was like how he applied himself. And then like you said, there was moments where, you know, he might have felt that he needed to address the group on his own, you know, away from management staff like that, or away from where anyone else would see it. He knew when to kind of step in, even if it was individually with someone, you know, who might be on the verge of a move or might be out of the team. On the other side of things, he was brilliant for kind of pulling someone, and as a captain, like knew his role really well.
Nice.
Yeah, I remember actually, even just for listeners, like Rory obviously is your older brother who we know really well, even just from coaching, and also we went to college, and you played with Rory as well, didn't you, in college as well? But I remember when you first broke into Bows, all the talk about was either yourself or Detzer. That was the only conversation. I think Keith Buckley as well got some good mentions as well. But yeah, it's funny how you bring him back, because I was like, Jesus, that just brings back like crazy memories from when you were like just breaking into Bows. These are the newer, or more, how would I say, tailored quick fire questions to yourself. So if money was not a factor, what would be your dream watch and why?
Dream watch? That is specific. Dream watch, I would say Patek Philippe 5711.
Specific.
Get a little photo of it up there.
We definitely will.
And then hopefully I'll have it on the podcast now.
Yes, sir.
Next year.
Good question.
Yeah, why?
I think watches for me is something that I've always been interested in, and not just kind of. Obviously, watches are a massive thing nowadays in terms of, you know, social media, and like footballers do elevate that in terms of like you know, to see the page, like what they're wearing and stuff. But like I've always loved the watchmaking side of things, like the movements, like how they're made, and the attention to detail. Like a lot of people would know a Nautilus 5711, but like the handcrafted, like the work that goes into each individual watch, and it's on your wrist just to show the time, is like, it's incredible. So there's another like depth. There's a lot more depth to watches than just like a bust down Rolex that you'd see.
Yeah, beautiful. When I was in college, in one of our lectures, they talked about luxury brands, but Patek Philippe was like the staple piece of what would be like a generational watch, from when it's like your dad would pass it down to you, you'd pass it to your son, etc., etc.
That's the thing. Another thing with watches, sorry to interrupt.
No, not
like,
at all.
People like think that watches would be like, oh, he's bought a watch. It's like a show off thing. But like, watches can be really good ways of like passing, like you said, through generations, and also like if for an achievement, like it can mark like an important moment in your life. A watch is a really good way of, you know, having something physical that you can pass down to your kids, and you can say, I bought that when I did this, or as a result of this. So I think they're really nice kind of investment pieces, not just financially, but like emotionally, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I was at a conference, excuse me, a couple of months ago now at this stage. It was the VP of International Markets for Farfetch, and she was talking about the key markets that they target, but one of them was on the luxury side for, let's say, achievement pieces, and they mostly go after anybody over 65 years of age. It would be their target market, because they are buying goods and, let's say, pieces specifically to mark events for their grandkids, etc.
Yeah.
Which is, I just think that's fascinating.
Special, yeah. It's
Because
cool.
the people that are wearing them are the footballers that everybody sees on Instagram, for example.
Yeah.
Which is just crazy. But we will get into that, obviously, as a topic of conversation just further on. These quick fires always get into deep.
He was the one giving out about them not
Nothing
being
quick
quick
about
fire,
them.
by the way. I'm calling him out.
But he meant to be like one-liners.
Not really. I think they have a little bit of freedom.
No, I like when they. He was the one that had to pop off us about it. But
I like
it's
freedom.
not about
Last one though, Paddy, right? Choose one brand that you cannot wear again. Stone Island, Nike, or COS. I'm going to say anything in the H&M brand as well, but COS specifically.
Ooh. It can't be Nike.
too much like run everything, isn't it?
Everything's Nike. Like
Yeah, boots. Everything's gone.
shorts, boots, socks. So Nike has to stay. That's a tough one because Stone Island, like I love Stone Island, and it's always been the kind of, it was the first brand that I, you know, when you get out of that initial like say COS, H&M, it was like you move into, that was the first brand where I was like, right, I'm gonna actually save money and buy a Stone Island jumper, because I remember it like this, the first one I bought, it was in lockdown, like from the COVID payment buzzing. Yeah, that was like, Stone Island is special to me. Do you know what I mean? It was the first. It kind of probably introduced me, especially as I got into menswear with the other side of things. Aside from football, that always kind of perked my interest. But then like I have a lot of COS clothes, but I think I'd get rid of COS because there's a lot of other really good brands that kind of have a similar shape and offer the same thing, but Stone Island, I'd struggle to not be able to shop there.
That answer makes complete sense. And that's the thing about the quick parts. Like
Yeah,
that
they can be
needed
quick.
a specific structured answer.
If I just said COS there, people would be like, right,
Yeah,
Grand.
absolutely.
Are you Nike or Adidas? I feel-
boots.
Just general. Everything Nike or Adidas. Because I feel like you're a bit
Like
about, are you?
shoes, I'm Adidas. Like as in,
But like one brand for the rest of your life out of them two, let's say. So you have to get rid of one of them.
I'd get rid of,
Because we're all just Nike on that.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're Nike loyal. But like shoes, I love like Sambas and stuff like that.
Yeah.
No, I'd probably get rid of Nike, you know.
Huge.
I probably would, like.
Huge.
Morgan is a walking Nike tick, to be honest.
Yeah, you head to toe. Yeah. Nah, 3 stripes loyal.
Well,
And that concludes the quick fires. Interesting. On a bad note, now you're my bad books anyway. Yeah, such an interesting guy, man. And I think obviously a lot of people do know there is a couple of sides to you, probably in and around the bow circle, your close friends, etc., and your family. So I think it's important that we don't just talk about the football side of who you are. I think it's important to kind of, let's say, untangle a few things. But to where most people are familiar with you when it comes to football, you originally were the captain of Bohemian FC's under-19s team. If I'm not mistaken, you guys were quite successful, even with the players that you had in that squad, what they've gone on to do in the silverware that you had. And from that, you broke into the first team after the under-19s campaigns. But from there, what has been your strategy to really develop as a player for the next few seasons? Because you have done a round trip now before coming back and signing for Bows at the start of this year.
Yeah, it's mad, like, and it's weird. A lot of people, you know, who wouldn't be that close to me would probably see him at Bows now and just think it's been like linear. Do you know what I mean? Oh, he's still at Bows. He's still playing away, but it's been crazy from when I remember finishing at 19s and my first season coming through at the first team. To be back here now is like a completely different person. Obviously, I'm a lot older and stuff like that, but from how it went to where I am now has been, it's been completely up and down. Had a really good, first year. You're delighted to be there. You don't really, in terms of game time, it's not the first thing on your mind. It's like, for me, I was like, couldn't believe that I was there, from having gone from Raheen United initially to 19s and then just sticking it out at 19s to be in that first team environment was enough for me that first year, just trying to learn and stuff. Then the second year, it starts to get a little bit more, like, not frustration, but I wasn't obviously playing every week consistently, and that can be frustrating. So towards the kind of end of the second year, I kind of started, when you get a taste of that first team football, it's addictive. And probably towards the end of at the first spell at Bows, I just knew that I always wanted to stay at Bows, but I knew that I had to go and play more football. And that's when obviously I signed for Longford, it was a tough decision, obviously, because leaving Bows was, like I said, I'd come through there. It's an important club for me. So to go out and play had to kind of be my next focus. So I went to Longford, and what was a difficult year, but what I look back on now as like a massive learning curve for me. Particularly with how it went with 19s. We were always one of the strongest teams at 19s, and even had a really good first year at Bows, a strong team. Then to go to Longford and be on the other side of that, and probably on the other side of the things in terms of professionalism, like just like small details, like it's not a gulf, but little things that you would have taken for granted. It's when you go away and when you don't have that, you get a real hunger to get that back. And I think that was the biggest thing for me was coming away from Bows and thinking, I remember like even when we played against Bows and stuff, I was like, I need to get back, or I need to get back to a full-time environment or something, because that's what I need. You know what I mean? So Longford really helped me realise and not take it for granted where I was, because I might have for a while. Do you know what I mean? So then after a tough year at Longford, obviously we got relegated, which isn't a great feeling. Like, there's a lot of really, really great people at Longford, and particularly that year, a really good group. Dara Doyle, John Martin, Marzi, some really, really good coaches and people. So that was tough, to not do enough to stay up. But I managed to nick a move to Sligo, so I don't know how. But I managed to get myself to Sligo then. Sorry, I'm just doing a full run through.
This is
no,
exactly
keep
what it's all about.
Hope this isn't quick for.
No, sir.
So then I managed to go to Sligo, and that was my first taste of full-time football. At Bows initially we were, training in the evenings and stuff like that. So to go from that, where I think at Longford we were 2 nights, maybe 3 nights a week max, to a full-time environment at Sligo, was like, that was a massive jump for me. It was my first time in full-time football. Obviously at Bows, the first time was, we're training in the evenings and stuff. So this was full-time, training in the mornings, gym in the afternoons, everything, your whole life catered around being a full-time athlete. And that was amazing for me. And I was really able to push on, physically. I was able to, get on top of my nutrition, my recovery. And that's, I know in the league, a lot of people talk about the difference in full-time, part-time, and they say, it's just the evenings or the mornings, but it's not. It's like everything else around that, your sleep, recovery. So that was massive for me in terms of, like, getting in shape. Well, I wasn't in shape, but getting, like, dialing things in that really make a difference, at that level. So had a really, really enjoyable year at Sligo. We had a really, really good side, players who have moved on now to England, Scotland. And yeah, it was a really enjoyable year as a group and personally. Then coming towards the end of my year at Sligo, there was kind of interest within the league, and I was kind of waiting on a shout to Bows, because like I said, once I left that first time, Bows was in my radar to go back. I knew within the league, if I was lucky enough for that opportunity to arise again, I'd jump at it. So I met Declan and stuff towards the end, late on in the year, when I kind of knew I wanted to come back to Dublin. Met Declan and stuff, and like I said, I jumped at it, but I wouldn't have gone if I didn't think it was going to be the right environment, and the plans in place weren't right. But like from when I left to where it is now as a club, facilities, the squad, the group, the staff, everything is just like, it's like as full time and as professional as it can be, in Ireland. So yeah, that's kind of the full circle of from coming through at 19s to coming back to Bowes.
Yeah, amazing. I have a couple of questions on the Bohemian side now. So you touched on when you broke in as a younger player, it's more so an appreciation of every single minute that you're there. There's no pressure to play per se that you're putting on yourself, but you must have came from Sligo after playing in Europe and being a really good side and having a great year under your belt with a certain amount of pressure. What was it like coming back to Bowes, and did you feel internal or external pressure in that sense?
It's a good question, yeah, because there was, and it was completely different. I felt like I was a completely different person coming back from having played and having these experiences in Europe, and playing week in, week out, which is something that I had to do. So coming back, there was definitely internal pressure from myself and like I was told all preseason, I was told throughout the first run of games that there's no pressure on me here. Like I've worked, I've gone away, and I've kind of earned a place to come back. Like it's on merit that I'm back here. But I had built up in my head this pressure that probably wasn't there. You know what I mean? It certainly wasn't there from friends and family. It wasn't there from the group management. They couldn't have been more like welcoming and reassuring that. But it's probably just the way I am. I was like, I just wanted to hit the ground running, and I wanted to, be at this level straight away from minute one. And then so I was going into games, like looking back now, probably like in the wrong mindset, more so thinking like from external factors, I need to be good here. Like there's people in the crowd that I know, I have friends who are here at the game, this is my club. But that's something it's probably not a good headspace going into a game. It's not, you're not thinking of the right things, and that did affect me 100%. I'd be honest in saying that for the first few weeks of the season, it took me a while to adjust to being back in Dublin and in Sligo, it's like you're in Sligo, you're living in Sligo. It's like
you're kind of hidden away nearly. Like
you're
it's
hidden
just
away. Yeah. It's like you have a good game, yeah, it's great, but you have a bad game, it's like none of my friends watched it. Like it's grand, you know what I mean? Whereas like I know my mates are at the game, and that's the difference. Like so, but it was all internal pressure that wasn't really there. So I think now I'm kind of beginning to realize that like it's taken work to like get into that headspace. But I think I'm in a much better place, much more composed place than I was when I first arrived, even 6 months ago.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I think I watched one of your first Sligo games because you were playing UCD away. I was definitely would win the first 5 or 6 games of the year, and I remember watching you that day, and I'd watched you play for Bowes before, and I couldn't get over how me and Foxy were watching. I couldn't get over how like free flowing you were playing, like as in like you would just be so expressive. You'd like get the ball, you'd carry. At one stage, you made the same player I think twice on the touchline. And then there was obviously a couple of little clips that went around of you when you were in Sligo with Joey and Dolcom there, where you do the meg and then you'd hit a diag across the pitch, and you looked so like that, just so expressive. Not that you would have been a restricted player before, but I remember I would have watched you kind of in a couple of Bowes games, and like obviously I think I watched him one of the Dublin derbies and all, where it's a little bit more tense of a game, and obviously you have to, as a fullback, you have to do your first job to defend. It's almost like the Sligo period. You were just so expressive, like you were driving with the ball, like I said, making people hitting these diags and all. I remember looking like going, you look like a different player altogether. Yeah. How did you find that year in Sligo in the sense of your, like Gal said, your development maybe as a player? Like, was it to do with the idea that you were kind of a little bit further away? Was it anything in particular you got from coaching staff, or how did you find that?
I think, yeah, definitely. And you're right in saying that, like, how I played at Sligo was like, I think it was more me. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was probably a lot more mature, that I was able to kind of take a look at things, and like what we'll obviously get onto more, like my business side of things had been more developed. So I think that takes a big pressure off me. And knowing that I had that, like I was coming out of college when I was initially at Bowes, and I was like, oh, I'm not good enough to be a professional footballer. Like that's not gonna be a career for me. That's where I was at that time. Whereas I got to Sligo, I had all those years in Dublin where I was really able to work on stuff outside of football, and it allowed me to go to Sligo with a complete freedom in that, just to enjoy my football. And, definitely management instilled that. Liam Buckley at the start, and then obviously John Russell towards the end. But yeah, and it was just confidence, and that's all it was. I was probably never 100% confident in myself, you know, as a whole, in terms of who I was and what type of player I was. So it was just confidence, and it kind of just snowballed from there that, you know, you go into games and, you know, that kind of imposter syndrome, like that starts to go, and you're thinking, yeah, I can play this level. And once you're in that mindset, like I'm sure chatting to the other lads, they'd be the same in terms of that confidence. Even if like going to England and moving into first teams, it's confidence is a massive thing. I think at Sligo, things aligned really well, and I was able to play with that freedom, and that obviously stood out.
Yeah,
if you noticed it.
yeah.
Yeah. Where do you draw the line with confidence, in the sense that how much responsibility is on the staff to make all players feel at their best confidence wise, and how, like, what would the ratio be between, like that, how much do you expect from your coaches to instill confidence, and then internally, how much confidence do you think you should be getting out of your own self?
I think it depends on the person. Some people react differently. Like, I know I had 100% backing, like I said to you earlier on, 100% backing from management, staff, players this year. But within myself, I didn't have a confidence at the start of the season. And I think that's just the way I am within myself. But like you do hear a lot, you know, a manager gives a player confidence. And that is a big thing you see in football with different personalities, where, you know, they need that to be told, you know, you're this, you're that. And it like instills them. I think that is important. But for me personally, I just knew I needed to get myself in a good headspace to be able to play confident football.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%, man.
Very interesting.
Do you want to pivot? Because the football side is interesting, man. But I think when we're talking, because we obviously, within the circle that we have, we've got access to a lot of amazing footballers and amazing people. But I don't think anybody is as, I would say, multi-talented as you. From what I have, like, I've known you for years now, and it's just been incredible to see your individual journey across the last 5 and 6 years. And I always we have talked on this podcast before about like what Training121 is as like an extension of, let's say, myself, Morgan and Gary, because of just our innate interests. And that's something that we were talking about even for this brief, was just innate interests in general. Because if we looked at your CV, or even if you went onto your LinkedIn page, the first thing you'd see is that you were with Bohemian Football Club, and the first impression is that people would think you're a professional footballer. But even some of the things that we were discussing earlier is that you're a talented musician, a content creator, and I think you've got a real appreciation for human creation. Even talking about the watches earlier, the ability for somebody to craft a watch but literally just sits there and tells the time. Somebody creating an amazing, let's say, service-scaper experience in a coffee shop, but the final product is literally just getting some caffeine. And I think having that sort of interest is fascinating. Where does that innate interest come from?
First of all, thanks for that. Appreciate it. I don't know, to be honest. It's always something that I have had an interest in. I studied communications in college, which, you know, that opened my eyes up to kind of meeting people in those circles. Like, a lot of people who would have been in college with me are now like full-time content creators, stuff like that. So that opened my eyes to it, which, again, as a footballer, if it wasn't for me going there, I probably never would have been exposed to it. So that was the first kind of it got me a real interest in, you know, other avenues other than football. And like I said, that always complemented my football. But I think it was through that and obviously the modules I had and stuff like that, which got me the initial interest. And yeah, probably the people I follow online and stuff like that. But it's kind of a combination of a few things. But I think definitely having been to college and, you know, met really, really good people in those circles, that kind of got me the initial interest, which I kind of just pursued.
Mm-hmm. And from that interest, obviously, it sparked something. So when it comes to what you do day to day, could you go through a little bit about, let's say, for example, dubstreetware. And I would even say just a whole portfolio of different social media accounts that you have under that bracket, because there is a couple.
Yeah. So dubstreetware is kind of like I always find it difficult to, break it down to what it is. But basically, it was initially how I started was because I wanted to, share kind of creative stuff that I did, but away from football, because that was away from my personal page, which was like a footballer, because that was something I always, separated in my head, thought they had to be separate entities. So that's why initially that page was made, Dubstreetware, to kind of just showcase some photos that I might have taken with a phone before I had an interest in the camera and stuff like that, and where I wouldn't get stick, in the dressing room or fans or whatever. So that's how it started. And it's kind of grown into like, as my interests have developed and as I've learned more in terms of photography, videography, the page has just developed like in sync with that. And, it's at a point now where it's more so just a platform for me to, I kind of pick up a lot of work through it in terms of like social media content, photo shoots, videography work. But it's just a really good outlet for me now as a platform to share my other interests in. And it's separate at the minute, but in terms of a physical page, but I think it's really grown into kind of showing the other side of who I am and stuff like that. And it's been, bringing it back to football, it's been a massive outlet for me away from football to have that focus. It's a bit of a tangent there, but that's kind of where it's gone to now. And it's I'm really proud of where it is today.
100%, man. I definitely think people need to be or have broad portfolios of different, let's say, income streams, ways of actually creating wealth, because like, unfortunately for the career you are in at the moment, you are literally one injury away from never kicking a ball again. And I think that's a fate that a lot of players have and don't realize it until it's too late sometimes. And I always appreciate when people like you follow what is their innate interests and really try to develop something that's a net positive, because I think there's a lot of untapped potential in people, but when people actually try to do it at scale and monetize it, I think there's definitely a lot of value that can be brought worldwide. I wouldn't even say just communally, because the power of social media is crazy. We see it every day, for example, and especially when you pick, or not even pick, but have an interest in something that is just an extension of who you are. I mean, the odds that is applicable to a worldwide audience is huge, and social media is now that vehicle that can really extend it, which I think is absolutely crazy. So it'll be very interesting to see with the different types of content that you're creating and how you're developing that over the next few years, exactly where that is going to be.
Well, I always say, like, even to my teammates, the power of social media, and particularly the position they're in. It might only be League of Ireland, but like, I think it's something in sport that's always been kind of a bit of a grey area. It's like, oh, he's posting too much social media or he's tweeting. But I think that side of things is different in terms of football. But like, I've always said, I'd always encourage people to use their presence and use their position in sport now for that. When they finish, they're well-rounded, and it's not just like my identity's football. Because everyone has other interests. Whether they share it, whether they actually do it, is a different thing. But everyone is more rounded than just football. So I always try and encourage anyone. And I know it's kind of tricky the higher up you get in football, and like in terms of like social media, liaison officers and stuff like that you have to pass things by. But I just think it's such an important thing to take advantage of the position you're in, because it is powerful. And even at my level, League of Ireland, it's like you do have an influence, whether you think it or not, or I'm not into social media. It's such a valuable position to be in, where so many people, like you'll see yourselves, like in terms of like Katie McCabe, Georgie Kelly, obviously Harry Kane, a level above that, but like the power they probably even see in terms of engagement from those people is massive. And then more than any kind of content you could create or any other ads you could push, it's like, and that's purely based on the work they've done to get where they are in football. So yeah, it's definitely a force for, you know, longer, like after football. It's something that can be used.
On that topic, because generally players get demonized when they're in a poor run of form. So you think the Rashford situation a couple of years ago where he was doing great things outside football, but because he wasn't performing on the pitch, it was seen as, right, you shouldn't do X, Y, and Z away from the game. Have you ever found that pressure when you maybe have had a drop in form on the pitch, or have you found that actually your external or your innate interest has actually been a nice thing to get your mind away from football to kind of reset yourself? Is it kind of a battle between that almost, or have you found it beneficial, or do you kind of stay away from it when your football isn't going too well, so to speak?
It's a very good question, because it's something that has been highlighted for me this year, coming back to Dublin and back to Bows. I'm constantly in battle with myself, like I said internally, that like, oh, should I post this, even if it's like I've made a video for someone else, or it's like I've made content around, you know, a new pair of runners. It's like, oh, but I had a poor game Friday. It's like, how does that look? So it is tough, because whether I like it or not, it's like we like I said, we are kind of role models, and we do have we're in a position where, you know, we're being made, like, not we're in the firing line, but like people have their opinions on your game or whatever you do. So it's difficult, but I've kind of come to terms with it, that like they are separate things, and you know, I've built them as separate things to because it's something that's always benefited me, and when I'm playing well, I've no problem putting content up, because it's almost like I get a free pass because I've had a good game. But like I've kind of worked hard on kind of separating the two things, and you know, getting myself in a place where, right, regardless of result, how I play, this content's made, I need to put it up, you know, like I think that is just internally. I don't think there is too many people that, well, I don't know, maybe there is, but I don't think there's too many people that will be saying, oh,
what's he at like?
He's having a coffee, you know. They lost.
What is he having caffeine?
Yeah, so it's a constant battle.
Yeah,
it is a constant battle.
The funny thing with them things is, like, you could have, let's say, made a piece of content for somebody, and you've had it done for a week or two, and then you've played the game the Friday, it hasn't been great, and you're just posting on Saturday, but people are like, why is he doing that on a Saturday? But it's like, no, it was made a week ago. I'm just like, I remember,
and like it's
having the David
stuff,
Luiz, I think, where was he with Chelsea or Arsenal at the time, but basically a picture was put up of his jersey in the dressing room like 20 minutes before kickoff, but it was obviously put up by someone in his team, and they lost, and he had a mayor, obviously, and people are like, why is he taking pictures in the dressing room 20 minutes before kickoff, even though the picture was probably taken like 2 hours before, and the timing of it being posted was more so the issue. But it's interesting, because people grab onto Atten when you're not doing well, but if you're playing really well, they're like, oh look, he's doing this
he's
and that,
juggling
he's managing
really
things.
well.
Yeah. It's the same things you're praised for when you win a game of football, even like tactically with managers. You're then like, Pep is demonized. He like didn't play with a centre forward last year, and everyone's like, what are you doing? Then he wins the league, and like, oh, he's great, and then he's a centre forward, and like, well, what are you gonna do now? And it's like, you just can't really win sometimes.
That's the thing. It is.
You know?
It's a matter of just being in a headspace where you're just comfortable
with what you're doing.
You know, with what you're doing, and that's you. And yes, there'll be comments made or whatever, but like that, at the end of the day, that's you, and your own brand and who you are and what you love doing is gonna last a lot longer than football. So, like, to just park everything based on performance results, well, you'll never get anything done then. Do you know what I mean?
You talked a lot about your own personal battles, mindset wise. I've heard imposter syndrome, let's say low on confidence, thinking about what people will think of content being posted. Do you have any practice that yourself would do regularly to make sure that you keep your headspace in check?
Yeah, I do an awful lot of I kind of worked with a life coach at the start of this year to kind of, because I kind of went to when I was then, like, with work and with football, like, it was just kind of like there was so much going on, and like I said, I was going into games where I was like, I don't know what I was thinking of, whether it was, you know, I've work to do, or whether it's like, oh, I need to impress. Like, it was a jump, and it was the same in Sligo with it being full time and stuff like that. So I started working with kind of a life coach that kind of pushed me to do some like diary entries in terms of the day of a game. I'll always kind of go and write. And it's something that I haven't really spoken about before, but it's something that really helps me. And it's not anything crazy. It's just writing down kind of not affirmation stuff, but like kind of writing down like really, really mini goals for that game that day. And like kind of it's really good for perspective. Like I'd write down kind of the work I've done this week, and then I'd write down like the work that I need to do in the game. So kind of it builds a separation, but it really, really helps going into a game knowing that you've actually sat down and thought about it and addressed things, and you're in a clear headspace, and there's a message that you can just kind of relay to yourself when your mind goes. Do you know what I mean? So that's something that's been like massive for me.
Would the mini goals be like objective, like get X amount of crosses, or stop the like, or to be kind of more feeling?
No, it's more feeling, because I find it difficult to. I never really
Like
set
number,
goals in terms
like
of like actual
actions, so to speak.
Actions,
Yeah.
So it's more like kind of just being aware of what, like if X happens, how do you react? You know, it's just pure awareness, and it's just really, really, really helpful, because it means then, like we spoke about, you know, at the very start of the season or start of pre-season, like what's the very, very worst that could happen this year? And then when you write it down, you're like, right, well, if that happens in terms of football, what do you still have? And it's like, you've still got all your work, you've still got relationships, you know, there's so much more that, because like any footballer will agree, like you get yourself into a really, really bad space when, you know, if you're not playing well, you're injured. So it's just a matter of writing these things down, and then when these things might happen, you know, you've addressed it, and you know, it's not as if you're like, right, panic stations, what happens now? It just makes the highs easier and the lows.
Do you think you've an advantage over other content creators, social media companies, due to being a professional athlete, because you understand the heartaches of failure? Because creating business is a ruthless place.
Yeah, it is. I think it kind of works both ways. Like, being a content creator, the football helps me in terms of like an outlet, because I'm sure you will agree, as a content creator, there can be days where like your head's in something, and like you could be sitting at a laptop for the night. Do you know what I mean? And it's frustrating and stuff like that. So that I know, right, well, I have till this time to work because I have to go and train, or I'm not going to do any work Friday because of a game. So they kind of complement each other in that sense. But definitely like kind of persevere and stuff like that, that maybe I've never thought about it now, but maybe like those kind of traits I've always had anyway, in terms of, you know, getting stuff done hasn't really been a problem. But it definitely helps me in terms of getting work, being like I guess going back to the platform thing. It kind of, I think that more sets me apart than any other kind of characteristic from football. It's like, it's just a talking point. And it's like, we have a photographer here, or we have a photographer who's playing with bows. He'd be good to chat to, we'll get him. Do you know what I mean?
I get you.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
It comes down to that. And it's a talking point on any shoot I've done. It's like, oh yeah, the result last night, or how'd you play?
Icebreaker nearly.
Yeah, it is. It's
nice.
It's because it's a little bit different, you know, to a footballer that can.
I think, because footballers are kind of put in a box. They're generally thought of as like stupid people, basically, who just play football. That's kind of the perspective that they don't have any hope outside of football. Whereas, like, obviously, a lot of modern footballers now kind of show it's a little bit different. So I think that's probably, it is a bit niche, so to speak, you know.
I've definitely seen a shift, 100%. And I think when you're a sports brand, let's say, for example, because a lot of the content, I suppose a lot of our content would be quite similar to the content you would create with some brands and stuff. And it is nice to have a sporting perspective. I think I always say, typically when it comes to training 1-to-1, there's a lot of really good coaches, but there's not a lot of really good coaches who can create content at scale. I think that's kind of what separates us. And it'd be the same thing with yourself. There's a lot of good footballers, there's a lot of good photographers, but there's not a lot of good footballers who can be content creators in your sense. And that really puts, I would say, you can really escape competition through that authenticity, which is a huge, let's say, competitive barrier. People can't just like say, oh, I want to do like a Dublin streetwear thing, or I want to do a Dub Street cafe thing. You just can't, because it literally is just an extension of who you are. There's no falseness to it. But that's really, I would say, documented literature. I think people now in modern business, what people say is kind of like, circling back to what you said about like really productizing yourself and the opportunities that are within the League of Ireland, because a personal brand is, it's unshakable, it's unfakeable. If you are literally just doing an extension of your day-to-day things, it's fascinating. And that's what I was saying earlier. It could literally be anything in 20 years. There is no cap to it at all, which is both terrifying, but it's also exciting as well in that sense.
And it's like I said, it helps with the football, because it's like I'm so excited for when the football might finish, and then I'm like, right, well, I can go with this full time now and see where that goes. Like that's something that a lot of people might dread, towards the end of their careers.
Absolutely.
Whereas I'm like, give everything to football, see where that goes. But at the end of the day, like I'm just as excited for the possibilities in terms of like really getting my teeth into the content, Dub Street Cafe, Dub Streetwear, the photography, everything, and seeing where that goes. So it really kind of takes a pressure off, and even with contracts and stuff like that, like going forward towards the end of the career, like players start to like think, right, I need to get maybe a longer deal here for, just for that security. Whereas I think it's something that I'll always be able to make a decision based on football, and that's massive, because like you said, in sport, football, it's money's such a factor in terms of people's moves. So I think domestically in Ireland, I'm in a great position where if I feel like going to Bows, I didn't need to, think, I need to get X amount of money to sign for Bows. It was like, right, is that the right move for me? Football, is the right group environment? Yeah, great, let's do it. Because it's never going to be a deciding factor for me.
Mm-hmm. Clubs are going to love you as your agent. He's just going to keep wanting 1 year deals. Clubs will be all over that. Doesn't want a 2 year deal? Grand. Bring him in. Kind of segue a bit back to football. A lot of what you've talked, even from the watch piece at the very start, you're very like appreciative of detail, so to speak, in terms of every avenue of your life and your own work. Do you find that with football being coached, is that what you like? Do you like detail from coaching staff, or do you want football to be a bit more kind of a game, like let me play the game?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I said, when I'm playing with kind of like a freedom, I kind of I love being given that freedom to go out and play. Do you know what I mean? I do really appreciate, and from my brother being a coach, I really appreciate and admire coaching, but more so I'd say the side of analysis and like stats. Like we have a really good fella, Martin, in there with us, who kind of breaks down so much stats, like, and that to me is really, really interesting. I know, like, I think it was De Bruyne before he signed his new deal with City, kind of basically got a stat audit of like the potential of Man City over the next 3-4 years.
Because he doesn't have a agent, I don't think. He hired a stat company to do it, or proved his worth basically with numbers.
Prove his worth, and then have a look at City and like based on age and stuff like that, like see the potential of them over the next few years. So I think that's something that I really like and appreciate. And when we do it, like we do it, in fairness, at Bows, analysis, all that stuff is like as good as it can be. Do you know what I mean? So that's definitely something that I appreciate, probably from like you'd know yourselves, in terms of content, attention to detail is so important, and is the difference. So
amazing. Yeah, because you were saying from that game in the Sligo aspect, the freedom, and then it's always interesting to frame it in a different light, isn't it? Like some people like a lot of creative control, they like a lot of, let's say, to be walked through certain things like that, and then some people like to have zero instruction and just like to play with freedom. But it really is a dichotomy. It's a
that's some word.
Dichotomy. Oh yeah. Do you know where I got it from? No. I got it from
Can you spell it?
No, I can't. But it's one of those words that when you learn it, you run with it because it just comes up every time. Yeah. But then you're thinking, is it coming up because you're manifesting it, or is it coming up because it actually puts itself in the right place? But I got it off your man, Jocko Willink, the ex Navy SEAL, wrote a book called The Dichotomy of Leadership. Basically, it's like, people like detail, but they don't want too much detail.
Yeah.
Yeah,
type of
that's
thing.
what I was getting at. Someone who goes out and just plays is like, don't give me any of that. Let me just play the game. But like all the other avenues of your life are very like detailing the watch, detailing this, detailing that. I was just wondering, is it like, do you want that in football as well, or is football something you like being a bit different?
No, I think it's
You know?
completely like, and by no means do I have the most educated view on football, like for people who are listening. But like, I think it's, in terms of that freedom, you can be given that within, structure.
Yeah, exactly.
Where it's like, there's moments in the game where you want to be told, right, this is what you need to do, particularly defensively. Do you know what I mean? In a setup, set pieces, stuff like that, where it's like, right, we want you here, you do this, and we're happy with you. That's always reassuring at that level, where it's like, it's moments, and it's so like games are decided on small things like that. I think that's really important. But then on the other side of things, you've got a shape, but it's nice to have, a freedom. And I think it's well, it bows anyway, that you're given a freedom like in areas and in moments. And I think that's important for a player, because there is talk of like in football these days of like, the Brazilian style football being gone, where, like the likes of Ronaldinho, it's all like, like robots just following
It's like
formation.
positional play. Did you ever see the like passing diagrams of one of Pep's teams?
Yeah.
I think, and it's literally like an atom. It's like perfectly symmetrical. It's ridiculous. Like,
Yeah. And
whereas
it's moments like of magic that make you love football. Like, at the end of the day. So I think it's freedom within a structure, if that makes sense. I think is how I think football should be.
It's interesting because I watch a lot of this, read a lot of this. I get a lot on Twitter, generally the good side of Twitter, where it's kind of like a battle in football between what you would call positional play, which is like Guardiola. It's like, you're the left winger, you stay there, we get the ball to you, and like they call like a relationalist view. I think it's like building relationships. If you watch a lot of the Brazilian kind of league, their team could have the ball on the right side of the pitch, and they'll have 8 players beside them, and it's just all like no patterns. It's just like he plays, goes, runs forward, sets, and then they completely overload one area of the pitch, like real old school. Like whereas, and then you're kind of the opposite is the Guardiola of, here's our structure, left winger stays there. It's about getting the ball to him, not about him moving. And the way Argentina won the World Cup, I remember seeing an analysis thread, and it was kind of like the first game when they lost against Saudi Arabia, they tried to go real structured, and then obviously it didn't go well, so made a couple of changes and then made it more. And if you kind of watch certain clips, you can see, I think it was one of the goals against Croatia was just complete free flowing movement, overloading one side of the pitch, where you might be exposed the opposite side, but it's more to a South American, their heritage, I suppose, is more kind of built like that. So it's interesting, football's kind of battling between them things.
It's
of
like if you're a player,
full expression or structure,
If you have a player who can change a game for you, it's like you have to give them that freedom. Do you know what I mean? And I think even for me, like, I enjoy games a lot more. Like, I always try and bring it back to enjoyment. Even when, I'm kind of before a game writing down, I'm like, it's such a stress to be like going into games and like all over the place. It's like, what games do I enjoy? They're the games where obviously you win, but like the games where you're going out and you're like, you're in a flow and you're like, give me the ball. Where you're not like double checking your touch, like, oh, where's my next pass? Like, panic. It's like, just go out, play with a freedom, and they're the games you look back on enjoying. Like, the last thing I'd want is to look back at my career and think, oh, I was just playing within myself for so many games. Do you know what I mean? I think that for me is important.
Beautiful. Yeah, I think, amazing. Because even in the sense that with that bit of I would call that a mindfulness practice, really, writing in a diary. I wouldn't even call it like manifestation. It's more so just clarifying what is and what can be. And I think sometimes people just get caught in their own head sometimes with fear of the unknown. And sometimes just writing things on paper is such a nice way. And I think another way of expressing that sort of freedom is through music, for example. I know that you're a very talented musician. And do you find music as a real creative outlet, something that has no boundaries or fear? Is that something that you would use as an expression of just that freedom side of you?
Yeah, I think the music's great for me. I think it's probably something that I'll always do. Like, it's the one thing that I'm not hard on myself with in terms of getting better constantly. Like, it's like I'm just like, there's a keyboard in my house and I just play it, and I don't know when I'd play it. I might go through a phase where I'd play it once in a week, and then I might like be flat out playing it. It's just like, I don't know, it's like you're just drawn to it at the right time when that sounds a bit mad, like, but
Not at all. It's fascinating.
yeah, it's just like, I'd be like, I wouldn't know why, but I just end up sitting at the piano, and it's like, it's just such a nice thing to, you're not thinking of anything playing piano. Like, it's like, you can't, it's just like, you're just playing piano. So it's something that I'll always have wherever I live, is keys, like, is piano. It's just like, it's just so, yeah, it's therapeutic, like, and it's not like, it's, like I said, I'm not hard on myself in terms of learning, but like, you get into it, like, you try start to learn a song, and it's like, it's different work to like, right, I want to get this video edited, or I need to train, go to gym. It's like, it's such an enjoyable learning curve, learning a new song.
It's the definition of flow, like, isn't it? Your flow state is like when you imagine it's like music, particularly piano.
Yeah.
Have
That's always what you imagine.
you seen the film Soul?
Soul, no.
Disney one.
The Disney film
It's quality.
about a jazz musician. Oh, Paddy, you got to
Need it.
watch it, man.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you like.
No, honestly, like, that's one of the only films I've ever cried at, man. It's only
Yeah?
it's a child's film. Well, not a child's film. It's a Disney film,
Yeah,
isn't it?
Disney, it's a good Disney
Oh,
one. like.
wow. I mean, for somebody that is extremely articulate like you, who understands pressure and trying to get better all the time, and then this film is just a real appreciation of art, because it is a guy who's like, it's kind of the flip side. He wants to be like the top jazz pianist, basically.
Right.
But then, I don't want to spoil it, but basically the film ends with him just saying, Jesus, like, I just need to appreciate just how beautiful
So you've spoiled it.
this is. It's not a full spoil because there's a lot in it.
Right.
But if you definitely can park, let's say, a Saturday or Friday evening.
Nah, it's good.
Well, not Friday
It is
evening,
good.
obviously, a Sunday evening.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, watch it, man.
Give it a watch.
I think you'd love it.
Don't go to your game on Friday, gaffer. Knees at me.
Yeah,
the
watching
knees
Soul.
The
jarred
lad
again.
said Soul is on the box. We're there.
Knees jarred.
It's, again, I think everybody needs some sort of outlet, whatever that outlet is. But having like the awareness that the piano is something that you can go to without the pressure of wanting to do better every time you sit at it, that is a hard place to get to, I think. Because especially with your, let's say, business, your career, there's a lot of eyes on it, and there's a lot of internal pressure, as you said, and like having that outlet is vital. How do you even explain that to other players if you had to? Like, how do you find these outlets of just freedom and expression?
Yeah, it's a good question. Like, it's something that I do always try and, like I said earlier, I always encourage people to, pursue whatever it is there. Like, I've never met a person, particularly in football, like, who I've said, I play the piano, and they're like, "What, you play piano?" They're like, "Oh, I'd love to play piano." It's like if any of them were to pick up a guitar or start playing piano, like, and get into it, they'd love it, and it would be massive for them, like, in terms of assisting football, life, family, whatever. Like, it's just such a good focus that, because like, they're never gonna play. Like, even me, I knew I was never gonna perform for anyone, so it's like, why are you doing it then? But it's like,
Except for Keith Buckley.
yeah, except I'm forced to keep Buckley. But yeah, like, it's not for that. It's like, it's the, particularly as footballers, like you said, you're always kind of trying to play to impress, whether it's management, there's a pressure on you to, in training to perform. And whereas this is just like, you go home and you're doing it for you. It's like, it's one of the very few things where, like, you're the only one reaping the rewards from it. Like it's not for anyone else. It's not to play the Tree Arena. Do you know what I mean? It's like, so yeah, going back to your question, it's probably just, it's a matter of like being aware of what you like, because everyone, like I said, everyone on my team has got a passion they like. Like, a lot of the lads play golf now, and I think that's brilliant. Like, there'll be a lot of us who will go out when we get the chance in our schedule and play golf, and like, seeing the lads play golf is gas, because it's like, you do have that competitiveness, but they're like, it's such a good outlet because you're going out with the same lads from football, and you might be training with them and they'd be fighting with them on the pitch and stuff like that. Then you go and play golf with them and it's just like, it's gas. Like, and it's to have another focus like that, even if it's just for 4 hours in a week or every 2 weeks. I think like that's probably something that they never thought could see themselves playing golf. Like Keith Buckley always says that, like that he's a townie playing golf, like, you know? But it's like he loves it, and it's great for him, like, and it's great for everyone, like, to switch off for a few hours. And I think that's the biggest thing. Yeah, is with finding that other focus. It's like it's that switch off because it lives with you. Like bad performances can live with you for a full weekend, or it can spill into training. So if you know you've got this like other avenue to put your mind on, it's such a help.
Yeah, escaping is an interesting topic. I hear about it a lot. Like people are always like, some are on the fence of we should all have an escape, be it golf, music, whatever. And then some people fall into the escape of, let's say, drugs, alcohol, addiction. And then some people are on the fence of what is there to escape from. There shouldn't need to be anything to escape from. We should, even if we're working hard or if we're just relaxing, we should always be, let's say, the same person. But do you find that your personality shifts from football to when you're creating your content, or do you think it's all just a reflection or a spill of who you are?
I think it's the other way around. Like I would have changed personality going into football. Now this is at the beginning. I think now I've really, really come to terms with what I do, and I'd never shy away from like doing this podcast and speaking about my work. It's something that I hadn't done before. So I think I've been able to really kind of bring the two of them together, particularly this year and last year as well, where it's like it's too much of a stress to hide, you know, what I'm doing outside football, like, and keep it separate, and go into football and think, oh, I just have to work, because it's like, that's not me. It's like the Rashford thing, you know, when I'm playing well, it's what I'm doing is great, but when I'm not, it's not. So I'm just like, well, this is me here, so take that or leave it. Do you know what I mean? So I try and be really, this year, last year, I've really worked on, you know, on being completely myself and being open about what I do, and not shying away from it, and taking up opportunities, whether it's interviews, to talk about it, because before I would have dreaded that, thinking, oh, what are people going to think? But now it's like, right, this is part of me, and I can use it, you know, I can use where I am with football to, you know, push the business on, and vice versa.
Beautiful, man.
I was gonna ask him.
You fire away.
This lad in the Zen zone.
I actually hadn't know that.
You kind of talked about your ideal game being like kind of enjoyable, so to speak. I know you said obviously winning and whatnot, and then you've got quite a lot of experience in what some people would say is the biggest game in Irish football, in the Bowes Rovers derby. Do you find them games enjoyable in the sense that when you're in it, or is it kind of the celebrations? Obviously, if you win, that's enjoyable, and the game is just about getting it done? Or like, is it an enjoyable game to play in, or is it like, this is really tough, let's get the win and then enjoy it? Is it kind of one of them?
It is different, like, do you know what I mean? And I do always try and go into games thinking, oh, like, enjoy this, like, and my brother always says, enjoy it, do you know what I mean? But it's so hard to.
They look so. Them games just look like it's just whoever makes less mistakes.
Yeah.
Like, and you just don't want to be that team. It just can't be as
small
enjoyable.
Margins, like.
Yeah.
And like, when you look back and after, like, you're doing like a debrief of the game, you're like, oh, I was too worked up in myself there. I didn't get to enjoy that occasion there. So like, you have to really work to you know, take it in on the day. But like most games, you kind of, once you start, it's like kind of task focused almost.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, it's something that I always try, and every single derby, like, I'm like, right, this is where you want it. This is what you want. Like,
yeah,
even
the game,
second
like,
you left Bowes, you wanted to be back here starting in these derbies, like, and like, you're writing that down. You're like, but you know yourself that later on, like, you're gonna be like, oh, this is mental. But Yeah, you really do want to enjoy them, but it's hard.
It just must be hard, yeah.
Yeah,
I'd say
'cause
that's what
it's tension, like.
it's almost like when you win the game or when a goal goes in, you just see like relief from everybody, and it's just everyone goes
And you're
obviously
like-
it's
and then you're like,
ecstatic.
oh, that was class.
Yeah.
Like after, do you know
How
what I
many
mean?
of them have you played in? You must have like 6 or 7, would you?
I'd say it's 6 or 7. I'd
Because
say.
there's what
Yeah.
3? Is there 3 games a year? You
4.
Play, you play from 4 times.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Jeez. Yeah. You see a lot of them.
Yeah.
Did you get loads of abuse at them?
Yeah, I actually got a bit of stick for my business one of the days. Yeah. I was taking a throw in, someone go, oh, dubstreetware. And I was like, I was turning around, and I was like, that's personal. Like someone knows
Whatever
that.
about me
Like,
football.
That is below the belt.
say what you want about the football, like, yeah, but that's funny. I like that.
Yeah.
That's gas, man. Sinclair Armstrong said the exact same thing, man. He actually likes a little bit of stick from crowds, which is funny. I wouldn't.
Doesn't go over the edge. It's just like
Yeah,
it's the game,
Yeah.
isn't it? You know.
but yeah, I just wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought your personality would be somebody that would take that as like fucking let's get at these now.
It's like, because like if you met them in the street, they'd be like, oh, how are you? So it's like, you can't get too worked up with that. Like,
yeah.
Yeah,
it adds to it all, doesn't it?
Yeah,
like
if there
part.
wasn't that part of obviously the right side of that, like the rivalry stuff, like them games aren't what they are.
And that's
you know?
another thing, like, about the derby in particular, like, and most games, to be honest, is like, you can see, like, even my family, my friends who are Bows fans, like, they care so much about those games. Like, and it's like, and that comes across, even like if you're online, it's everywhere. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's like, even if you try to like switch off going into the game and thinking, oh, it's just a game, it's like, it is everywhere.
Yeah,
And it might be televised, so there's RTE in early, but like seeing the fans and like seeing, say, a display or like the amount of people are seeing that sold out in however many minutes, it's like you want it more then, because like right, these are all like, you know, paying their money and putting their time into a display and pyro and all that. It's like, right,
It's mad to think in a couple of years with like obviously Rovers are building the new stand, and then there's the development of Daily Mount and all, which is gonna be 10,000 seats, or is it 8,000?
yeah, around that, I'd say, yeah.
So like you'll imagine when it gets to that stage, because like what does Daily Mount hold now? Is it 3, 4?
4.5.
So you're nearly like doubling that, like
Yeah.
just a lift. Like you'd imagine it was a 20,000.
It's frustrating. It
capacity,
is frustrating.
like,
Like, and even when you go out and play in Tallinn, you're like, right, this is proper foot. It almost feels like a European game. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, because
what
the
it's
setup,
like.
yeah,
big time.
And it's frustrating because you shouldn't be turned away from the League of Ireland game. Do you know what I mean? For not having, like, for not
for the
being able to get a
capacity,
ticket, like,
yeah.
It's like,
Good point.
but obviously we're a bit off that yet. But it's exciting to see where it's going to go, because I don't know whether I'll just miss it when it's at its peak. Like,
Good point, man. Yeah.
like I've kind of, my kind of age, or when I came through, was like, I've probably the one, well, I probably am the older lads, but I've seen like the kind of transition from even in the media and stuff, and where it was, and lads going away and young lads wanting to play in the league. Like, even like, you probably know it yourself, and from coaching, like, I'd imagine a lot of the lads you coach now would have aspirations to play in the League of Ireland, whereas before that it would have been like
No, go
only England. Like,
yeah.
whereas now it's kind of like they're looking at League of Ireland players and thinking, oh, you know, they're professional footballers.
Yeah.
Whereas before that probably wasn't the case.
Definitely, yeah.
So,
Last
like,
5 years.
Yeah, it's mad to see the way it's gone to that. Like, now it's like a professional league.
It's a success, like, to be in the league, whereas
Yeah.
back in the day it was, I'm
That's
only
the
a
thing.
League of
Like,
Ireland
it's
player.
like,
you know?
oh, you're like, the amount of people, I swear to God, that'd be like, oh, just get paid. It's like, it's like they don't know that it's like contracts, and it's like, that's what, like, to the average person the League of Ireland is.
Yeah.
That's
But
crazy.
now that's kind of changing.
Yeah.
Even the likes of Jack Byrne, you know, that interest from America, being in
Yeah.
Ireland squads, lads going away. Like, I think English clubs are seeing a lot more value in players now from Ireland. So, yes, that's frustrating that the best players are leaving, but it says a lot about, you know, the standard in the league the last few years.
If a top player leaves in the league, let's say a top player from like a Sligo, I'm not going to say Rovers, because obviously if a top player from Rovers goes, he's probably a bit happy. But let's say from like a Sligo or a Derry, do the league kind of look around and say, that's probably a net negative, not a net positive for the league?
I
per
think
se.
because they don't feel it, clubs don't feel that they get the money's worth from them.
Yeah, that's fair
It's
too, man.
like that's kind of the big talk, isn't it? That
Yeah.
lads are going for what would be perceived as a small value. Like for English clubs, it's just a punt. It's
Yeah.
like,
it's
we'll throw
nothing
50,
like,
100 grand at this. If it doesn't work out, that's all we've wasted. Or he could be worth a couple of
That's
million
the
in the
thing.
few
Like
years.
if you're selling
free
players for
hit.
$1 million, it's like, right, that money can be put back in. So it's almost like a win for the league, getting people away.
Yeah.
With sell-on clauses, like Evans probably a success story of that. Whereas like, I don't know if another example, but someone going for 100 grand, like the top young talent in the league, going for 100 grand is like, right, well, they've got like superstar.
Yeah.
If he doesn't go on, but whatever, but like you want to keep your best players in the
Yeah.
league, but it's difficult.
On that topic, both have a huge tradition of obviously promoting young players. You being one of them, obviously, and I think if I'm not mistaken, the team of the week this week was yourself and James McManus. What's it like as your role now as more of a senior player with lads like James who are still late teens, early 20s? Do you see yourself as a role model? How do you integrate them into your squad from your past experiences?
I love it, like, not so much in terms of, you know, football so much, but I love the kind of dressing room part of it. Is like, you know, it's great giving the younger lads stick, like, for being, you know, if they come in with a new pair of flip-flops or something, like, or a wash bag, it's like, now in fairness, James McManus is not that type. But I like
got the same
telling,
cup of Mondial since he was 12, man.
I like telling him he is. Like, I go, yeah, James, you've changed. You know that? Like, I love saying stuff like that. And I think that side of things, I really like the kind of social side of things of like, because you're that's what you want when you're young, is like, it's not just lads saying, oh, do this, you know, and you'll play X amount of games. It's like being comfortable in that dressing room allows you to then be confident in the pitch, and that's when players are at their best. Like, I'm saying that I bring that out of it in everyone, but I think as a young player, when I was coming through, it's like that social side of the dressing room can be just as tough as, you know, out on the pitch. So I think for me, that's something that I'm always conscious of if a young lad comes through.
Yeah, you would consciously make sure that you go out of your way to make sure that somebody felt welcome on the social side as well, because that is a barrier that probably people don't even think about.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a really big one. Like, like everyone would think, oh, how's he going to train? How's he going to be amongst, you know, physically out on the pitch? But it's also like, at the end of the day, you're sending a 16, 17-year-old into like a dressing room of men, like, who, you know, some have families, kids, and it's like, that's so new to them.
Yeah.
Like the football, they're probably more comfortable with, you know, immersing themselves in that. But the other side of things is just as tricky.
Mm-hmm.
You see that even with players in like the English leagues, where like a foreign player comes from wherever, like South America or whatever it is, and everyone's like, oh, how will they settle? Like, that's more a social thing than that, because they're obviously quality players who come in like technically better than most players, but it's just like, for whatever reason they don't settle, which makes sense because they
And it's
like,
oh, second year, a lot of players kick on.
Exactly, yeah.
And it's because socially they've settled. Like,
yeah, geez, we used to always say that when we were younger, like, yeah, how are they going to settle? I used to kind of say that as like a blanket statement.
Yeah, you
never
never actually thought,
what
like,
does it actually
oh,
mean?
yeah.
because it's mad when you
Just don't
think,
know how they'll settle.
like, lads who rip it up in a league in Europe are obviously like
Top player, like they're
top
quality.
players. And if Liverpool's recruitment or City's recruitment are bringing him to a club, they're not just saying, all right, we'll bring him in. Like, they know how good he is. So that settling in period is like, I presume is social.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
It must, yeah. It would have to be, surely, if they're technically good enough, like, you know.
Big time.
And there's so many examples of that, you know.
Absolutely. One final question, just on the younger player side. Did you think that Evan Ferguson would kick the ground running as fast as he did?
It's obviously hard to say, and like hindsight's a great thing to say. Yeah, I did. I knew. Like, but he was like ridiculous. Like at 14, 15, you know, like when you see a striker and their finish, like a snap finish, and
You're
it's
just like, oh.
right. Yeah.
Morgan said the same thing about Harry Kane. He took 2 strikes over in London, if I'm not mistaken. Was it 2, Morgan? 3 strikes, and he said they were just like
bang,
next level.
That's what I mean. Like, that's the kind of thing you see, and like how he conducts himself, and then as the person he is as well. Is bedtime. The person he is as well, you knew he'd be sound, like, and I think he's a good family around him, like, so. But like, for it to be that,
That's
I was
that
gonna-
quick. Like
yeah,
it was,
I was gonna say smooth sailing, obviously not like,
Yeah.
but for it to be that quick and like each step to be so comfortable for him, that's obviously you don't see that, but nah, you knew he was gonna do well.
The
Like,
biggest thing you notice about him is his actual general play is really, really good. Usually you
Yeah.
get these young players come in and they get their goals or whatever because, again, sometimes you can get a nice, like a hot
Break
hand, so to
for you,
speak.
yeah.
Yeah. But if you actually watch him play against centre halves, he is like, he reminds me a bit of the way Costa used to be at Chelsea. He's just such a handful and he's like a teenager.
and then you see him
Like,
drop
physically,
Yeah, you
it's
see him drop
ridiculous.
deep as well.
Yeah,
Like,
and he's got that
and
about him as
get
well.
a
Yeah.
throw in and like wrap it out to their fullback, and it's like,
Oh,
yeah, the real deal.
No doubt, man.
yeah, it's interesting.
I need to give him a bit of stick if I see him as well. Yeah, you've changed.
With a $4,000 watch bag. Probably driving the
My
G-Wagon
watch, the
now.
watch I want on as well.
Oh, stop. I suppose we'll finish her up, will we? I think I think when you consider the Bows recruitment last year, you were kind of one of the first people in this Bows rebuild that they brought back, yourself and obviously Keith. I think that probably says a lot about how people probably find you around the league, or the good kind of personality you are, that you'll be one of the kind of first cultural architects, so to speak, brought back into that dressing room for the rebuild. So it's been really good to have you on. I think we've touched a lot of different topics, so hopefully people enjoyed it.
Yeah, and even just in the conclusion, Paddy, you are a history piece of Training121, and I think we genuinely appreciate the trust that you gave us back in the day when you were breaking the bows, and the continuous relationship that we have now, even just going out for dinner a couple of days ago. Unfortunately, I wasn't there. But
For dinner?
Yeah, fancy one.
Sounds better, doesn't it?
It does.
Than
Much
Nando's.
better.
But even like those little things, man, because football is such a tight community. I think it's important that we all stick together, and I think even with our community, it's probably a little bit shared to yours. So do you want to conclude with how people could find your pages on social media? Because I think a lot of our audience would have an interest in the content that you're creating as well.
Yeah, so obviously you can do a little link below, all that stuff. But yeah, so Dubstreetware is the main page for kind of social content. I have a photography page, Dubstreet Photography, which is kind of all more work that I have with different brands and stuff like that. And then Dubstreet Cafe is something that a platform I have for kind of independent coffee shops that I hope to kind of build more on in the next couple of years in terms of getting it as a proper platform for food and drink in Ireland. But yeah, thanks a million for having me on. I think it's mad to think, like, I remember Morgan getting off the train in Raheny with a bag of balls from
few
Maynooth.
orange footballs.
What was that, 4 years ago?
It's 2018.
2018, yeah.
2018. Yeah.
5 years, huh?
You probably never imagined that it would get to this. So it's been motivating for me to kind of see it from that very start to where it is now. So appreciate you having me on, and fair play to you.
Won't be the first time, man. I guarantee there'll be a few times.
We out.
We out.